This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management, and this is part two of my series to assist local county auditors and their staff as they submit valuation to the Department of Management for 2023. This particular segment is going to be discussing working with taxing districts within the system. So within the system, county auditors or staff with county auditor type access can add or delete taxing districts. When adding taxing districts into the system, you are asked to use uniform naming conventions. So you're going to be selecting their name in the system. And so we do ask that you provide uniformity. So we see similar names used across the counties in the state. So use city after the name of a city, city ag after the city's name if it's in a city ag district, city exempt, SCH after the name of a school, TWP after the name of a township. To separate the various names, use a backslash. And for TIF taxing districts, use the name of the TIF area followed by TIF base or TIF incrim or INC at the name of the taxing district. So the reason again why we do that, we want to create uniformity so someone can look, at different counties in the state and understand what's a city tax district, what is a TIF increment district, etc. Now, I would express to you again, these are used in the instructions, and there's examples provided. So if you are adding taxing districts, please take a moment to consult those instructions. So associating new taxing districts to levy authorities that are able to tax within that district. If you're creating tax districts to service TIF base and increment needs, the online system is going to do some of the work for you. It's going to associate the levy authorities found with the selected parent taxing district when creating a TIF-based taxing district. So it's going to say, okay, this is a parent district you're selecting. We know that this city, county, school is in that parent district. And so in this TIF district and this TIF base, we're going to assign those same levy authorities. When the increment district is created, and you do always have to create both a base and an increment, the increment district, when it is created, it will associate those base district levy authorities that are authorized to levy for debt service. Because with increment district, the only folks that can tax directly against that value are those that have debt service. And so if they have debt service, then those will be allocated to that increment value. Now, we're talking about TIF in this particular slide. There is a segment or a series, I should say, that talks more specifically about administering TIF in the online valuation system. And primarily the reason why you're adding tax districts is for TIF. So I would highly recommend that if you're adding tax districts, for purposes of administering TIF, then you're going to want to review those videos. City exempt. So if you're creating a city exempt tax district within our system, and just so you know, city exempt is when there's an annexation. So the city's annexing property outside its boundaries, and the city chooses to phase in how much of that parcel's value is coming into the city rate. So they bring them in a little bit of their value at a time, so they're not going from paying, just a township rate to paying a full city rate. So if that's a situation you've got in your county, so there's an annexation and they say, well, okay, we're annexing, but we're phasing them in to the city tax rate. This is what you're going to use as a city exempt tax district. And the online system will associate the appropriate levy authorities, again, based on specific prompts that you use. This doesn't happen too often. It kind of depends on the county and if there's a lot of cities that have, growth ideals. So if that's the case in your county and you've never done it before, please feel free to contact me and I'll walk you through the process. Schools only tax district. This is new to talk about, but we're not actually going to do really much of anything with it in 2023 assessments. The reason being, I wanted to go ahead and talk about it a little bit because it is new and it was part of some legislation that was passed last year, but it's not really going to impact your 2023 assessments. So, in the last legislative session, a bill was passed that made quite a bit of property tax changes, House File 718. And one of the things that it did is it changed urban revitalization programs. So, urban revitalization programs are under Chapter 404 of the Code of Iowa, and essentially they're a development program that creates or provides an abatement to property owners of different types of property for building or improving property in this defined area, right? So, and oftentimes it's a sliding scale. So they say, okay, homeowners, you build a house in this area and your property taxes will be abated for a certain number of years. 50% of your value won't have any property tax on it. The next year, maybe it's 30% will be exempt from taxation, etc. So there are those programs out there. And so what this bill did is it states that when these programs include residential property, that the school tax rate should still apply to the exempted value. So say you had a program that provided a 50%, in a given year, the program provides that 50% of a home's value is not going to be taxed, right? So 50% of it gets the whole regular consolidated rate, and the other 50% is not supposed to be taxed at all. Well, in this case, what the bill says is that 50% that was formerly no longer taxed is actually going to have the school's total rate apply to it. So that's a change, and your assessor is all the assessors are aware of this change. Hopefully, your cities or whoever's implementing these urban revitalization programs are aware of the change, and this is something that's coming kind of down the road. The change doesn't implement until July 1st of 2024. So, for valuation purposes, when we're talking about sort of the county auditor's side of this process, if a county has this program, that's has a program, there's a city or the county for that matter, has a urban revitalization program that's going to be affected by this change, we're going to see that come into play with the assessment year 2025. So essentially 2 years from now. There's going to be a requirement to create some new tax districts during the submission of those 2025 values if somewhere in your county you have a residential urban revitalization program that's going to fall under this new requirement. Now, we've added the functionality. You're not really going to see it in the system, but we are doing a wizard process that'll walk you through that process, and it'll attach a special schools only flag for that valuation. As I mentioned before, you're going to see some fields that say schools only but have an N next to them. You can ignore those from now, but I want to make sure that people kind of understand what that's referring to so you don't get confused and just kind of be aware of the change. It's sort of an educational piece, but you don't really have to do anything with it this year. So when we talk about our tax districts, we said before that there's 3 different types of actions you can take. You can edit them, you can manage associations, and you can delete them. If we're talking about editing tax districts, you can go to your tax district screen. If you know, okay, I have a tax district and I need to change the school name because there was a school consolidation. Okay, I got to update that school name in the tax district name. That's a real common reason why you might need to change a tax district name. So you can search it by the number or the name. If you're a county that has a lot of tax districts, this is probably the way to go. And then you'd select that edit under actions. Again, edit tax district. And there's not a whole lot you can edit within a tax district. There's a couple things, and one is the name. So you'll see here that the name is in blue, and you can just click right into that box and make your changes. Okay. As I mentioned before, you're going to see some of that schools only information. Again, it's just a box here. It's always going to be blank for those assessment year 2023 data. It's not used, it's just sort of a placeholder ready to be used when needed. When you're in this tax district view, you'll also see the assigned levy authorities. You cannot make changes to the levy authorities here. You can't make changes to any of these flags, but you can edit the tax district name. Okay, the other thing you can do in the editing tax districts is make a quick change to the value. I do suggest only doing that if you have, like, say, a really small change. You want to make sure that your data that you're submitting to Department of Management that's coming out of your system is matching up with what is actually filed in the system. So you don't want to upload your data, make a bunch of changes here that then aren't reflected in your local software. They need to be the same. So again, if you had, say, there's a couple different specific examples where it might be helpful to just go in and make a quick change here. It's not something I suggest doing very often, but it is something you can do if needed. So if you have a question about making a change here, you can certainly ask me, but it is an option. If you change the name or you make a change to the values, be sure to save that data. The next thing you can do with your tax districts is manage associations, meaning manage those levy authority associations to that tax district. So, what levy authorities are taxing within that specific tax district area, right? So, if you click on manage associations, you'll see the list of the folks that are currently taxing in that taxing district. You can unassign a particular uh, situation here. So say again, the most common reason why things are changed are school consolidations. So it could be a situation where there were two schools, now there's one, and you need to change the school association. You would unassign here, do a search just by your school name, and then assign it. So again, you do a search, you do a little plus to assign that school. Well, now we got two assigned, right? So we know that's wrong. So we're going to have to unassign that old school so only the one assigned school is there. It's going to ask you to confirm, and you would say yes. So that's just a quick example of switching a levy authority association. It's not something you have to do very often, but in those instances where it happens, it is a relatively painless thing to have to do. Okay, deleting tax districts. So in our system, you can delete tax districts, but if you're like, oh, I don't think I need this one anymore, and you just hop right over to delete and try to delete it, it's going to say you can't delete a tax district that has levy authorities associated with it. And we put this in place just to sort of prevent someone from deleting a tax district, realizing later it was a mistake, and having to go back in and create it again and mess with it that way. So it's prompting you that, okay, there's still levy authorities that you are saying are going to tax within this taxing district. So kind of a, are you sure? And if you're really sure, well, then let's, unassociate those levy authorities that you're saying, don't need to tax in this tax district yet because it's no longer needed. So you'd go over to the Manage TDLA associations. You'd click through and unassign all those levy authorities that were listed in that tax district you want to delete, and it will ask you to confirm. So sorry about that. It is a little annoying, but you would have to do that. And if you have a ton of tax districts you need to delete for any reason, and you want some assistance on my end as far as doing that in a quicker way, let me know. But again, you sort of click through, unassign all those, and then when you're ready, you click the button and it will let you delete it if there's no levy authorities assigned to it. Adding a tax district. So if you have a situation where there's a new TIF district or, for any reason you have to add new tax districts, maybe there's a new fire split, and so you're adding tax districts to accommodate that new split in the county, you would go over to tax districts and select your Add Tax District button. And we'll go through a city exempt example. So that is one that uses sort of the wizard, and the system does a little work for you. It's going to give you some general instructions, and you're going to click Next. You're going to have to enter the tax district number, the tax district name. Again, use those uniform naming conventions. And in this instance, it's city exempt, so it's an urban district. And then it's going to say, okay, for exemption information, is it city ag? No, it is city exempt. So you're going to select that, and it's going to force you to select a parent district. So it's saying, okay, which city is this property being annexed into? And you're going to select that. So that way it can assign for you the correct levy authorities for that tax district. In this case, we're going to say it's not TIF related. It could be, though, so just kind of keep that in mind. And then it will provide you an overview of the tax district you created, so you can take one final look at it and cancel if you don't think it looks correct, or you can create. Okay, so for any non-TIF, non-city exempt taxing districts, after you create it, you have to assign the levy authorities. So we'll go through a regular taxing district example. So we add our tax district. Again, here's some basic instructions. We select Next. This is an urban district, so we're going to enter our tax district number. And one thing about the numbers, I will tell you, it will populate for you the next available taxing district number. This is an editable field, but I would suggest, using what is populated here in almost all cases. So if you have any questions about the tax district number, let me know, but you don't want to jump to, a 2000 number for some reason. You want to kind of keep your tax district numbers close together without large gaps. So you would enter the tax district name using the uniform naming conventions, and you'd select urban and next. And then again, TIF related, yes or no. We're saying it's not TIF related. Here's just a real brief overview of the information, and it's going to say, okay, so you created it, but levy authorities are not assigned at this point, right? So you need to do that on the next screen. And if we were going to then, whoops, sorry, I'm going to go back up a screen. I want to show you an example of a rural district, very similar, except when we type it in, we would select rural. And one thing you'll see is there is a little step that you'll need to skip through. There is exemption information. This is just preparing for that schools only situation, and you just click next because there is not a situation that would be applicable here. Non-TIF related, next. And then in either case, city tax district or a rural tax district, if it's just a regular old tax district, you're going to have to associate the correct levy authorities. And it's going to tell you down below, these are the ones that you must have, right? So you must have a county, school, an ag extension, an assessor, a community college, and a city, since this particular one is a city tax district. So you're going to have to, search through. You can do it by the levy authority codes. You can do it by their name, whatever. Search and add those to that particular tax district. So we know this is, for instance, this is in County 90. So we know it's going to be Wapello County. So we do Wapello, and we can go down and add Wapello County to the list of assigned levy authorities, and we do that for all of them. If you happen to forget one of those required levy authority assignments, you'll see an error. when you run your valuation, when you run your errors checks in your process, and you will be unable to load your to file your valuation. So it's going to tell you, okay, in this tax district, you didn't assign something. Go back, take a look at that tax district and assign it. It will tell you which taxing district has the error, and then you can go back in, pull that tax district up, manage associations, search for that missing levy authority, and add it. Now, I will tell you, it's going to help catch any required associations. So that means those basic levy authorities that any tax district would have. It will not um, be aware of any special districts that your county may have that should be applied to that particular tax district, right? So if you create a tax district that actually is also part of a benefited fire district, that's not something that's everywhere, and the system is not going to know that that's a required assignment or a required levy authority for that new tax district. So you need to be aware of that. One that happens sometimes is there's about 43 county hospitals in the state. So, not even half of the counties have a county hospital. But if you have a county hospital, obviously you will need to associate that county hospital with any tax district you create within your particular county. But the system's not going to catch that for you. So that's something that you'll have to be aware of. And again, this is kind of what it looks like. Oh, community college wasn't associated. So I got to go back and I got to add that one. If you have any questions as you're working in the system, adding or deleting or doing any work with tax districts, please let me know. I am available both by phone and by email. Thank you.